Joining me now, continuing the conversation, is James Richardson, conservative columnist, former spokesperson for the Republican National Committee, and for former Governor Haley Barbour of Mississippi, and for Utah's John Huntsman. He joins me from Atlanta. The last time we spoke, James, you were not on the Donald Trump bandwagon. Any changes?
No, I'm happy to report that I am still not a Donald Trump supporter.
Do you think he has? Do you think he's hijacked the GOP? What do you make of all of this?
You know, he certainly hijacked the debate, and he's been very, very successful at that. You know, as repulsed as I am by his rhetoric, I have to regrettably concede that his political acumen and instincts are impeccable. He's tailor-made for the Kardashian era. You know, he is an entertainer at base. And for the last couple of days, all anyone can talk about is his Muslim travel moratorium, and that's exactly what he wanted to do. He's masterfully capable of keeping the media in rapt suspense, and he does it in a way that no other candidate can do. Now, as the question of capturing the Republican Party, taking it over, I would say that he wouldn't. Trump voters aren't the typical Republican voter. If you look at the polls that have him leading by really significant margins, diving down, you find that a number of his supporters are actually self-identified moderates and people who haven't previously voted in Republican primaries, but are for some reason attracted to Trump in this race.
James, in the old days when it was decided in the back rooms before the wide primary systems, some say better candidates were selected by the pros in the back room than the public in the front room. This Donald Trump phenomena wouldn't have happened in 1950.
That's correct, and this is a function of that. People are, tired of that. They want to have their voice heard. They want to be reflected and be a part of the debate, and that's why he's doing so well, because he is the outsider candidate, and people are really sort of dissatisfied and have this serious distaste for the establishment. And that's why he's thriving in this environment.
But as a Republican and not a Trump Republican, you must say to yourself, every day he does this is helping Hillary Clinton.
Absolutely. He is, Hillary loves Donald Trump. She wakes up every day, I'm certain, and in her morning prayers, she gets on her knees and says, "Thank you, God above, for the gift of Donald Trump." I have no doubt about this at all.
Okay, so what happens? Where does this playbook end?
The Trump phenomenon is as mystifying to you as it is to me. Everyone wonders what is actually going to be the thing that takes Trump down. People posited that it would be his comment about John McCain, and yet he somehow survived that, and his numbers actually went up. Now they're saying maybe it's this Muslim travel moratorium. We're yet to see if that's actually going to be what takes him down. I certainly hope something does. If I knew the answer, I would have already implemented it, and I would not be suffering the pains of Donald Trump right now.
Does it disturb you that the USA Today poll says 68% of his supporters would vote for him if he ran independent? And knowing how much Donald loves his name in the papers, do you think that's a reality, that he might run independent?
That is a very real risk. This is a vanity project for Trump. It's always been about getting his name. He is, an insane egotist. He really loves driving the press. He was upset today that he wasn't named Time's Person of the Year. He was actually publicly miffed that Time did not put him on the cover of their magazine. So it's a real concern for me that he might bolt. If he does, I think it necessarily means that Hillary Clinton is the next president of the United States. And the person to blame for that will be Donald Trump.
He even knocked the president of Germany, who was chosen as Time's Person of the Year, as a bad choice.
Yeah.
It's just pretty funny to not only knock that he's not the choice, but to knock the choice.
But to knock the actual choice, yes.
Our Political reports today that the National Republican Congressional Committee fear that he could jeopardize their control of Congress. Do you think it could come to that?
Well, I'm confident that my fellow Republicans will not nominate Donald Trump. I am confident that Trump will not be the nominee, which is to say that concerns about a general election drag are not genuine, and we shouldn't really be questioning this right now because He isn't the nominee. He won't be. So I don't really think that we need to waste the time and space trying to chart out strategies in which he is the nominee for the party.
All right, let's move elsewhere. Last time you were with us, your hope was for a Jeb Bush nomination. What has been wrong? I know Jeb a long time, and I knew him in Miami. This is not the Jeb I knew. What's wrong?
Jeb has really struggled. It's a very, very diverse field. There are a number of establishment candidates. But the thing that Jeb supporters are hoping is that he's going to peak at the right moment, that there will be something in New Hampshire that will catalyze this race, that will set him apart in a New Hampshire voter's mind, that he is the singular person that can defeat Hillary Clinton. He still has a lot of money. That's resources that really matter in politics today. So even though he's polling 3-4%, you never know what's going to happen. And I mean, no one expected Donald Trump to be leading the field. So I don't put it past Jeb Bush as a very, very resourceful, intelligent person to somehow still clinch the nomination.
Now, social issues seem to have been pushed aside, marriage equality, abortion rights. In a weird way, does that give you some pleasure?
No, I think, social issues is something that attracts a lot of voters to the Republican Party. My own view on marriage differs with our party platform. But social issues is sort of an entree for Republicans into a lot of minority groups, with African Americans, with Latinos, who have very traditional views on marriage, very traditional views on the sanctity of life. And this allows Republicans a way to communicate with these communities when they lack sort of this platform and pathway on other issues.
Some might say the most reasonable candidates are Jeb Bush and John Kasich. Why aren't why are they
I would say that
resonating?
Marco Rubio is also reasonable. I think
But he's a Tea
almost
Party
everyone
favorite,
in the
isn't he?
field is reasonable.
Isn't Rubio a Tea Party guy?
Absolutely, Rubio is a Tea Party guy.
And
there's nothing wrong with that.
Isn't the Tea Party fading?
Well, I think the body politic in America, it just goes through phases. The Tea Party is fading, one might argue, but something is going to supplant that. And there's nothing wrong with that. That's the natural progression of American politics. The ebb and flow of political caucuses within parties. There was a time when blue dogs were very popular in the Democratic Party, and I would make the strong argument that its demise hurt the party in a big way.
Will a plus for Hillary be the fact that Bill Clinton will be out campaigning for her, and there aren't many better than Bill?
That's true, but he was a problem in the 2008 primaries. I don't need to remind you that he caused a whole number of negative headlines for Secretary Clinton when he was out on the stump, and he made some sort of demeaning comments about President Barack Obama, then Senator Obama. I think he's actually going to be a detriment to her, which is why you're not going to see him on the stump as much. You're going to see her out front. She's the one that needs to advocate her own vision as president and not her husband's.
What's her vulnerability, in your opinion?
Her vulnerability is, I think, secrecy. Whether it's emails, her tenure in the State Department, in the Senate, she's very, very secretive, and that's typical of the Clinton way. They don't want to be open, they don't want to deal with press, they don't want to deal with ordinary voters, and I think that makes her vulnerable in a general election.
What do you do, James, as a strategist, as a Republican, if Trump is your nominee? What does James Richardson do?
Throw my hands up in the air. I think that establishment Republicans are almost to the point now of huddling en masse outside of Trump Towers and asking God to deliver the party from Donald Trump. I mean, establishment Republicans are getting a little desperate at this point that we're now so close to the caucuses and Trump is still leading. Ultimately, I'm confident that Trump will not be the nominee. So the hypotheticals of him being the nominee, I think, are not worth entertaining.
This divisive...
Although they would be entertaining, certainly.
Well, somebody said a
Trump-Hillary
debate would outdo the Super Bowl. It could go on pay-per-view.
Yeah, and he'll tell you on Twitter how many views it gets, too.
He will. What's happened in American politics? I can remember the days, I'm a little older than you, James, when Republican and Democratic senators would go to lunch together and let's reason something out. Bills could be compromised. Reagan and O'Neill were friends. What's happened?
Well, I understand that concern, that sentiment, but I would also say that there was also a time when American politicians dueled in the streets, to the death. So I think part of it is the advent of social media. Part of it is people are just scared and angry. They're pissed off as hell about the state of the country, about what they perceive as the president's weak response to the advent of the rise of the Islamic State. And tensions are really boiling over right now. And I think that we need a president that can dial that back. Donald Trump is not capable of that. I think Jeb Bush is capable of that. Marco Rubio is capable of that. Chris Christie. But Donald Trump is not capable of that.
Is Christie still in this game big?
I think in New Hampshire he is. I think it's go big or go home in New Hampshire for a lot of folks. There is a very tight race among the establishment candidates right now to set themselves apart in New Hampshire. And Christie needs New Hampshire in a big way, in the same that Governor Jeb Bush needs it.
Is the Bush name no longer a plus?
Well, if you look at his bank account, I think you would say absolutely. He's brought in a lot of money because of the Bush network. If you think the Bush name is a negative, I think I would submit to you that the Clinton name is also a negative. They're both names that have legacies in the past. That said, both of these candidates are advocating for visions of the future. So I think, one balances out the other.
James, it's always great talking with you.
Thank you so much, Larry.